So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our roundtable discussion on maximizing your MarTech in 2024. Unlock the full potential of your tools with Mountainise Incorporated. I'm Joe Rizzo, your moderator for today's insightful exploration into the future of marketing technology. We're joined by a panel of distinguished MarTech experts and industry veterans ready to share their knowledge, experiences, and strategies to help us navigate the evolving MarTech landscape. But before we start, please note that throughout this webinar, your microphones will be muted to ensure a smooth and uninterrupted experience for everyone. However, we highly encourage you to actively participate using the Q&A section of the Zoom interface. So if you do have a question, please use the Q&A down below the Zoom menu. Our panelists will address these questions after the panel discussion, and any questions not addressed will be answered via email. So let me begin by introducing our esteemed panelists. So Tim Hillson, founder and CMO of Entry Point, has launched over $1 billion in products and campaigns for global giants like Visa, Microsoft, and PayPal, and has led marketing for category-defining B2B SaaS companies across the US, EMEA, and APAC. He's also spearheaded go-to-market strategies for Fortune 1000 clients at PwC and Cognizant Technology Solutions. Jimmy Smith has been working as a data scientist for over 8 years, having received various certifications, awards, and accolades during that time. He's experienced performance success in hundreds of modeling techniques and data science implementations across a variety of industries and team settings, with a particular focus on natural language processing. Will Saunders is a partner at Countercode, a Salesforce consulting company based in Houston, Texas. For the past 15 years, Will has focused on building digital solutions for energy and industrial companies, and launched Countercode 2 years ago to help B2B businesses scale their customer-focused processes with Salesforce. Sherry has been working as a marketing technologist, BSA, and marketing ops consultant for about 8 years. He has Stack expertise with Salesforce, Marketo, and over 50 other Stack technologies across enterprises and SMBs, and is a specialist in Stack architecture and strategic Stack planning and implementation. And I'm your moderator, Joe Rizzo, and I've been providing company leadership, GTM, marketing strategy, sales, and product guidance to B2B and B2C companies ranging from Fortune 500 to startups. So with that, we're going to turn off sharing and we're going to focus in on our questions. And let's start off our roundtable with a broad question. Will, let's start with you, if you don't mind. What is one of the greatest challenges you have encountered in the MarTech sector, and what solutions have you discovered?
That's a good question. There are a lot of challenges. I would say working in technology consulting around the MarTech stack, obviously compliance and privacy at the top of the list, but that's kind of boring to talk about. So we'll jump to that and talk about an equally boring topic, which is data. So I think, and that's nothing new to 2024. I think the bloat that the MarTech ecosystem has in terms of the number of technologies that are out there and can be used by marketing teams, sales teams, service teams, creates a lot of different data sets, right? And I think key to marketing these days, or just customer experience, is understanding your customer and kind of getting that full view of who they are and be able to use that data. And so to be able to centralize that, and so you hear the term CDP, or customer data platform, as kind of a critical component, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. The centralizing that data across your CRM systems, your ERP system, marketing automation tools. A lot of times with bigger companies, you might have a bunch of those systems as a result of acquisitions. And so using a CDP platform, a customer data platform, where you can centralize and get one view of the customer, I think is a way to solve that challenge. So you hear technologies, I work with Salesforce specifically, they have their own CDP tool, but at the heart of kind of some of those things are tools like Snowflake, MuleSoft from an integration perspective, or Informatica, et cetera. So I think that data is a huge challenge. That's always been a challenge, but it just grows increasingly more. I do think the proliferation of MarTech tools, especially now with the onset of all the generative startups, I feel like with ChatGPT, everyone and their mom has a GPT startup of some sort, which is really just, a wrapper around OpenAI's APIs. And with all of that, you have so many tools that teams are using and testing things with. So navigating that's going to be one issue. And I think on top of that, you do see an economic slowdown as a whole, and probably scrutiny around MarTech budgets. But not only that, too, if folks aren't spending on MarTech tools, that's going to have create ripple effects with all these startups that are in the AI space. So I do think that a challenge will be navigating that landscape that's very complex and bloated. As I said earlier, is going to be a challenge. And I think to kind of combat that is you really have to focus this year on what are your strategic platforms and tools that are going to be around, and invest in those as budgets tighten. The last thing I'll say too is when you think about customer experience, one of the big things that is continuing to trend from an experience standpoint is the need for community around brands. And so technologies that support building a community, a digital community, I think are growing increasingly important. So, and we're doing this ourselves. We're launching a community for industrial energy focus, which I'm in Houston, Texas. So that's kind of the niche that I serve. And we're using a platform called Mighty Networks. It's one of the kind of leading community-oriented tool sets. And so I think, as companies look to how do we build communities among our consumers, our customers, the technology that supports that and ties into our existing tool sets is going to be critical. So I'd say, data obviously challenge, navigating the landscape, and then how do you leverage some of the new technologies out there to build community?
If you don't mind, a quick follow-up. You mentioned marketing budgets and MarTech budgets shrinking a bit or static. How are companies going about proving ROI, and does that not stem that MarTech shrinking of or freezing of that budget?
So there definitely is more focus on ROI, at least I see with my clients. I had a call with one yesterday where they're asking, I can't see the return on investment for this thing that we're building right now. And so they want to see that. I would say too that a lot of the testing or the iteration that you see with some of these smaller tools where, hey, we have this hypothesis, let's go test and use this tool. I think you'll see probably less and less of that this year. I think it's a good practice to have, but if you have to spend money on something, those you can't prove ROI on as easily. But some you can, just because you can say, hey, we're going to run this for a 2-week kind of cycle, and if it works, let's double down on it, kind of thing. But a lot of those that I've seen in the past, as kind of like trial experiments, you might see less of that tactical kind of tinkering, if you will, this year, and again, more of kind of doubling down on your strategic platforms.
Cool, thank you. Sherry, do you have, if you could, can you jump in and provide commentary or an add on to what Will is saying?
Exactly. I just found one thing very interesting what Will was talking about, and that's the saturation of the tech stack. And I think the shrinkage in budget is also coming through that lens that in the pandemic, I was at Asana at that point, And the biggest realization for us at that point was that we had a very saturated tech stack, and there were a number of tools that weren't generating the revenue that we were looking for. I remember we had about 20 different stack tools in the marketing technology stack, which weren't operationally effective or weren't even passing on data. So it all ties back into the fact that oversaturation of the tech stack is something that has been abundant in the market for some time now, and that's causing that budget shrinkage as well. Even now, I see there are a number of businesses that I consult for or work with that have a tech stack which is expanded beyond what is required and what is optimized. I wouldn't say required, but rather I'd say optimized, because definitely you need a new tool for a lot of different functionality that you want performed within that automated space of your marketing operations. But within that tech stack, the biggest issue is you keep on putting things. It's like you go into a grocery store and you have your trolley and you start putting everything in, but you don't have in mind what you're going to create at the end. So you don't have a recipe in mind, but you're just putting things into your trolley, and at the end you have a lot of great things in there, sure, but it's not going to create what you're thinking of as a recipe. And that's what I've seen abundant in the market. So 2024 comes as a year where there's going to be a lot of rethinking about what the tech stack is going to be. There's going to be cuts for sure. I see that already happening in the first quarter, the first month and a half. A number of businesses are cutting down on some tools, looking to move from expensive ones to smaller ones. You see that SMBs have started to go towards less expensive CRM solutions instead of going with expensive ones. So that's a very recent trend that I saw uprising mid-2023. Before that, I had a lot of clients that were still within that HubSpot domain, Salesforce domain. But now you see that businesses are looking for solutions that are less expensive. So I think that ties back into the oversaturation and then the shrinking of budgets. So I think the biggest thing for 2024 for all businesses, it's going to be that you have to figure out what are your best players. You have to figure out what your end recipe is, what you want to create, and then you have to choose which one stays and then optimize it to the best possible level.
Thank you. Jimmy, if you don't mind, Will talked about the role of CDP within the stack. You're our data science guru. Could you provide some commentary as to the role of CDP today? And do you see it continue to grow in importance when it comes to data analysis, data collection, data analysis, data science? You can unmute. Still muted. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do agree that the measure of essentially the CDP, how it's affecting the company and how companies decide to allocate resources is going to be a continued big contention point. Historically, I think there was a lot, essentially when you had the onset of some of these technology giants like Google, Facebook, that were just collecting lots of data. And then they're doing these things that wasn't really being seen before. A lot of companies kind of followed suit with that we just need to keep collecting data and good things will come. And so that there's that realization that if you're collecting a lot of data with no purpose, no goal with it, you really are straining the company resources if you're not taking a vision with it. And so that balance of being able to take actionable steps as a data analyst, as a data scientist, in my experience, I work as a facilitator as far as taking the data that's already here and saying what can be brought out that was already present, and working with the business leaders to define those goals, working with data analysts to do a deeper level analysis that they might not thought to do before. But at the end of the day, essentially with that kind of premium price tag of this position, if you don't deliver results that are affecting the bottom line of the company, you're not going to be around very long. And there's basically true and tried methods, and these experimental ones, either they don't produce results expected, or they're just finding cheaper, easier ways of doing it. Well, I shouldn't say easier, but cheaper ways of doing it. They're building it themselves. They're looking for certain custom features that they can't find with the MarTech on the market. So they say, hey, we're going to make our own to some degree, and then try and market that. And so that it's a very interesting space that we're changing as just an industry as far as how we view the use of our data and what's worth it.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Let me jump back to Will with another question. Will, in your opinion, what are the critical components of the MarTech stack in 2024? And how do those tools adapt to the evolving digital marketing and marketing automation landscape?
Yep. So I've mentioned, customer data platform earlier, some tool to centralize data, allow you to transform it and use it. That's obviously, I think, a critical component these days. At the foundation of all that stuff or at the foundation of all that is you need solid systems of record. So your core tools in the marketing automation space, might be marketing automation tool, it might be a CRM system, it might be your ERP system, combination of those. CMS probably layered in there too. But all those need to be able to integrate seamlessly with that type of platform, right? So you have one view of a customer. And so I think the critical components are going to be the CDP layer to any stack, the core systems of record that can tap into that and present one clear picture of a customer. And then I would also say that because you can't really ignore the elephant in the room of these generative tools that are getting all attention these days, I will say that, those need to be considered as, and how they integrate with that. Good examples are, and I think we've been using AI-based tools longer than ChatGPT has existed. A good example is there's a company that some of y'all may have heard of called Lavender .ai that has a tool that does, that was there before, ChatGPT was a thing, that would help you grade your emails. So as a marketer or a salesperson, it would read your email and give you critiques and grade it and allow you to improve it, right? And so I think tools like that help with efficiency as you're in the creative space trying to develop content, or if you're on more the sales side and engaging with customers or service too. So I do feel like there's obviously a good, strong place for these AI-based tools. And so the core platforms will need to tie into those. So the more and more you can find these more modern AI technologies that fit well with, for example, a Salesforce, a HubSpot, or whatever your flavor of system of record is, I think that's going to be a big part of it too. And probably most of us on this call, this webinar, use those to some degree. To just how do you integrate those?
Sorry, Tim, are you seeing that the influx of generative tools with your clients at your practice?
Hey, Jimmy. It's great to be here. Tim Hillison. Yes. And, I think that Sherry was talking about something to Will's last comment as well. There is increased pressure for ROI on the MarTech stack. However, there is also increased pressure to innovate faster with generative AI. And so this yin and yang is really playing out a lot at my clients right now. So, one of the key things is utilization has dropped a lot, and we've talked a little bit about that. So it plummeted to about 33% from mostly large organizations, and Gartner had a big report about this. However, one of the things that we are noticing, and we have noticed since about 2019, is people added MarTech platforms for capabilities very quickly, but then their actual use of them in producing the supporting the marketing objectives and then the business objectives waned. And so this is why you're seeing a clipping back. However, given the advances that Will was talking about in AI and how they can hook in and integrate to these systems to build greater efficiency, we're seeing a lot of companies who are really looking for those pockets of money to get that going.
Uh, you, Tim, I'd like to stay with you for a second and just switch track a little bit. How does MarTech impact industries of different sizes, small, medium, large businesses alike?
That's a great question. And, first, why don't we paint the picture of what 2024 looks like, right? I believe, and this is what I see in my clients, that all businesses are becoming technology businesses, for one, and they're using this marketing technology to power their marketing departments. Again, different than just general technology. But, the average MarTech stack across businesses had probably around 91 tools, right? And I've heard that go up and up. Um, there is increased pressure from the CFO to provide this ROI based on tools. And, as the poor utilization that I talked about previously, that is one of the first places where people are clipping and deprecating tools that are already in their MarTech stack. But, if 2023 was the year of efficiency, 2024 is the year of effectiveness. And what I mean by that is, how do you balance cutting back with doing more, right? And one common thread for marketing technology and operations is really to deliver on the marketing goals and support those business goals in creating that customer experience that will differentiate companies, right? Now, for small businesses, they tend to be agile, people tend to wear many hats, and they tend to want to go for innovation, right? For medium-sized businesses, they're really looking for more product market fit and how they scale repeatable processes that they're creating. And for large enterprises, a lot of times they're really looking across multiple markets and segments and knitting together a unified customer experience to create a more brand impact. But when I look at small businesses, and let's take that first, and then we'll go into the others. Here people are aligning around go-to-market teams, which are product, sales, marketing, customer success, revenue operations, and enablement. And so really what we're seeing is, instead of these siloed tools, more horizontal tools, and really being able to augment the limited resources that a small company has. And, clear examples are a lot of the stories that we've heard from even creators, people that are solopreneurs, how they've created massive revenue based on launching a product and then using MarTech to be able to reach others, right? Again, the key here is amplification. In medium businesses, really, again, it's about improving operations and expanding market reach, right? And really, it's going from what their to be is to that desired state. And again, repetition here is key. A lot of times, the MarTech platforms that they're getting, and Will touched on this, is how you knit them together and integrate them in a way, specifically in and around data and data unification, right? Where you've got this 360-degree view or this unified customer view throughout your different platforms. This is still a challenge for many of these medium-sized businesses, right? And then for large businesses who have much more broad reach and that are using a lot of different advanced marketing technologies, really looking at how, first of all, most are centralized. So they may even have using a center of excellence, right? Where they are not only focused on specific geographies, but multiple product lines, and they're knitting this together to reduce what their expenditure is and maximize their customer impact. So that's that. But I think that what's really important about your question, and just sort of to bookmark it, Jimmy, is, we talked about specific sort of functions, like you were talking about the CDP, that they have a varying degree of importance based on if you're small, medium, or large. For instance, digital transformation, and we all experienced this a ton throughout COVID, is huge for small businesses. Getting everyone to work together and to actually be able to push out these experiences, like a webinar, for example. It allows one to many. It's huge. Whereas for larger businesses, they already do that. The impact is a lot less, right? Um, Data privacy and regulation, perhaps it's less on a small business who's finding their way. But I'm telling you, if you're a large business and you are not GDPR compliant, or you're in healthcare and you're not HIPAA, you are having huge problems and are suspect to a lot of risk in regards to the fines that can be levied against your company. AI and automation, I think that Will and Sherry talked about this a lot. I'm seeing, huge growth, for instance, from, very simple use cases in my clients at small businesses, which tend to be around content, to medium-sized businesses, which are much more advanced analytics focused, and then to large businesses, which are really in and around integrations and how they're daisy chaining all of these different AI solutions together to come up with improved experiences. Social media, right, which is a huge play on the MarTech stack. For small businesses, this is so important because this amplification helps them build their brand, whereas large businesses, they have an established brand. So social media is important, but certainly not as impactful as it is at a small business. And then, for those e-commerce providers, Shopify, PayPal, all of these companies have really lit up what their revenues are. Whereas with a large company like Amazon, it's built internally, right? And so they have created their own solutions in order to do that. And then finally, the last point I would make is the data unification that Will has touched about. For me, this is the biggest challenge of 2024. A lot of companies still don't have this right, but you can't have all of these disparate systems that are not pulling from the same data. And I'm seeing not only increased usage of CDPs, but also of CDWs, cloud data warehouses, such as a Snowflake or a Databricks, where there is a centralized repository and they're able to call it up, and bidirectionally, the data moves from one platform to the other.
I'd love to talk to you offline about the cookie deprecation and B2C impact and how that impacts data. But I do want to follow up with this and then follow up with Sherry. So given what you just said, especially with regards to 2024 as being the year of efficacy, what should businesses do? What's the optimal approach for businesses when it comes to selecting and managing MarTech stacks?
So Jimmy, that's great. Remember, all companies are different, and I think that what we really need to keep in mind is that technology grows exponentially, but businesses grow logarithmically. I mean, you just add people, right? And so it's how you use those things and how you grow. Again, I think that the key part here that I'd like people to take away is that if your MarTech is not linked to your business strategy and then the marketing objectives that you are going to deliver, and Sherry said this very well, then you're really not giving a great service or building a great tech stack. So I've three frameworks that I'd like to share with you. The first one is for small businesses. I like very simple things for small businesses because they're wearing a lot of hats, and I call it the ROI framework, right? R is requirements, and this is where you're gathering and documenting the requirements. Again, remember at startups, many people don't do that, and that right there is a win or a quick win for you. But it actually goes beyond just the marketing team. I would definitely say, go talk to your finance team, go talk to your IT team, make hooks, understand what's going to work. O is the options. So when you're looking at the different options, it's really important that you're aligning those with the requirements and you're looking at what features, not just capabilities or software platforms that are out there. And then conduct an impact analysis. And this is, this is an abridged business plan, but it really is what is the potential impact and how will it deliver our vision over the customer journey that we're experiencing. And you've got all of those different touch points that you can do. This again makes it very digestible for your CFO and your CIO or IT leader to be able to get on board, but it's going to give you a clearer vision of what you need and what you don't. Okay?
Yeah, I'd like to bring in Sherry just to comment on this. Sherry, how do you go about assisting companies with the pre-decision justification as to what gets added to a stack?
I think that's the biggest part of what I would recommend everyone in 2024 to do. The pre-decision process is the biggest thing to do for your MarTech stack. If you rush into something, you get a product that sounds good, that definitely looks like something you'll have as a profitable or beneficial thing in your tech stack, and you don't know how well it includes itself into the overall technology stack, you'll have a lot of problems going forward. So the biggest thing that I like to suggest to a number of clients, be it a small business, a startup, an SMB, or an enterprise client, the biggest thing is that you go and you talk. You have a lot of discovery. For me, 30% of your time goes to discovery. You decide what exactly is it that you want to reach at and what it is that you have. So you have to start with what do I have currently? And that does not necessarily mean marketing technology stack. Just like Tim just mentioned, that it's not just about the marketing technology stack and the marketing technology side of things. You have to understand what is your biz tech stack as a whole. Does your business technology stack integrate well with the marketing technology stack? And then do your business operations and your marketing operations gel together to give you that clearer picture on what your MarTech stack is going to be. So you decide what it is going to be, and then you decide what it is going to do, because those two questions are very important. And one thing that I learned from one of my managers a long time ago was the what now approach. You ask yourself 5 questions whenever you're trying to do something regarding your marketing technology stack. And those 5 questions include, what is it that I have today? What is it that I want tomorrow? What is it that is lacking currently with the functionality? What is the benefit in terms of revenue that my enhancement would generate? And what will the state of my technology stack look like once everything is implemented? And that's the overall state of it. So my recommendation to everyone in 2024 is to spend a good time discussing things with a number of stakeholders, to talk to everyone who might be affected or who might be feeding anything into a particular tech stack option that you're trying to implement. Don't just think about who will be affected. Think also about who will be feeding stuff into that tech stack. So think about what's coming in and then think about what's going out of it, and make sure you do a lot of discovery. You talk about it before you start to make decisions on what you're going to add to your tech stack. And that should really help.
Yeah, communication is often overlooked. Appreciate that. Jimmy, want to ask one last question and pose this to you. And that has to do with the role of data science in MarTech. What is that role? And how can businesses overcome those integration challenges with existing MarTech stacks?
I want to phrase it. So it really, I would say the details as far as like the company's vision, the talent they have, and the level of communication between those layers. They, first thing essentially when, one thing is like when someone approaches me, they already have in mind that they want to use the Gen AI tools. They already kind of know, like they have ideals of what they think they want to achieve and the limitations of MarTech tools that they currently have. So there are like, they are kind of biased as far as like, we've seen this really cool thing and our situation is just a little bit different. Like, can we easily integrate this without much cost, and have something that's truly valuable? And depending on how that data scientist and how that business leader and then that supporting data infrastructure team communicates, they go from there. Because fundamentally the generative AI tools that of 2023, 2024 are truly powerful in their integration, as we've discussed, and in their ability to basically leverage the foundations of really huge models that took a very long time to train, and then give them the special sauce of being trained on that business's specific data to solve their specific problems. And so at that point, when you realize that you can take what you already have and go even further with it, and the integration is not difficult, it's not extra expensive, you're not you're not having to give a whole new team or department per se, and just take advantage of what's already there, then that's how it's proceeded. But I would also say that there's a lot of businesses, as far as from what I've seen, on the small side, that are taking advantage of these MarTech tools to have a huge outreach, but then they aren't really in a position to take advantage of data science. They don't have enough of their own data, or they don't have enough of I want to say almost like a unique vision, or they don't have the support structure to really take advantage of some of these tools as well as they can. And so then it's just they're at that point just chasing hype. And that's a lot of companies at all level, they're employing these tools without that business plan in place. We're doing this really cool thing, but maybe we're doing this for the marketing and saying we're using this really advanced, cool algorithm technology, AI, but there's nothing actually unique or special about it. And so they're just kind of draining resources just for almost the marketing of it. And so that's like one of the biggest things I've seen as a data scientist is the number of companies wanting to, have this for just the namesake of saying they have it versus actually be able to effectively use it in a real way.
That's interesting. And Will, just to follow up on what Jimmy just said, are you seeing companies, my apologies, Jimmy, but are you seeing companies replacing data scientists with generative?
Not necessarily with generative. So what I've seen last year, I had a big project at one of the big super major oil and gas companies that they have armies of data scientists on their staff. Most of the time and effort and money spent on the particular project where it was a demand forecasting exercise was all around data, right? Of just getting the data right. So that way the different models that you applied to it would work. That's where the time and attention kind of came into play. And so the role of the data scientist there was important just because they're the ones building the brains of the actual model that's going to give you the results that you want. I do see that there are big platforms, companies that are making heavy investments in AI or some of the more statistics heavy type predictive type technologies. I said I work around Salesforce. They have tools built in to their platform that make that very easy so that you don't have to pay have a large budget for the data scientists on staff kind of thing. And I do see those being used. Now that's expensive too. When you're paying a company like Salesforce or whatever a lot to use those tools, but it makes it easier to churn out that type of the end product of where you're trying to get there. So like, for example, cross-selling is a big thing that I see of like being able to say this customer or customers like this customer have an interest in buying these other types of products, and to be able to put that in front of like a customer service representative who's on the phone with the customer, a salesperson who's selling into a different business unit within a company, that's a very, I think, ripe opportunity for a lot of companies that aren't doing that. And I do see that the big platforms have tools in place that allow you to stand it up quick and easy without having to have a team of data scientists there to build it for you. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
I'd like to add something there, Will, to your question. is, are you seeing the replacement of data scientists? And I can tell you from my clients and what I'm seeing in the general, um, industry, no. But I will tell you one of the things that I am seeing, and that is what generative AI is doing is allowing more of the democratization of data. So whereas marketing a lot of times was handicapped because they were dependent upon a business analyst or a data scientist to get some data, now they're able to actually use this tool to do discovery. And so when they have the questions, they're able to get those questions answered much quicker. And so what's happening is the relationship between marketing and data science is improving and evolving. I'm also seeing data scientists more focused on that integration of the CDP throughout the business strategy or the CDW and how that's used, and the governance of the data structures and how data is added to systems.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. What I would like to do is check Q&A and see if we have any questions that have not been answered, because Tim and Sherry have been pounding out answers to questions, and I appreciate that. There is one question I would like to touch on, if you don't mind, and it piqued my interest, and that is Tim, you responded to it. So I ask if anyone else could respond to this, that'd be great. Do you see different MarTech stacks for B2B product-led growth strategies versus sales-led growth strategies, or are they essentially the same? Can anyone jump in on that? Tim responded that there's overlap, but the primary go-to-market motion is different. PLG is self-serve versus an SLG requires a Sherpa, of course. Does anyone else see any differences between the two? Will?
I think definitely Tim added a good thing there, that there is overlap. Currently, I'm doing a lot of work with Notion, and definitely there's BLG and there's SLG. We do both. There's no one single avenue to it. We're doing a very high-rated BLG because we've got a lot of product data coming in. We're acquiring a CDP this year. That means we're trying to indulge more into customer data that's coming from our product side, and a lot of our MarTech stack is built around that product data, because the product is what serves towards our sales and marketing as the beginning of everything. But then there's the sales-led growth as well. We've got a lot of last year, 2023, we spent most of it looking at innovating our sales strategies and our sales-led sales stack and the MarTech options that we had within the sales stack. So definitely it's an overlap, but the biggest difference there is that the product data that you have, how that product data is interacting with your marketing data. So the MarTech stack differentiates just at that. For that, I think there's a lot of overlap. And then I think good mention of the CDP and CDW. Definitely data warehouse goes a long way if you have a combination of SLG and PLG, because then you've got to have a consolidated place where you've got all the data housed with all of the different data points that you can then use and look at how you can make those two SLG and PLG be collaborative and be more potent for your business.
Thanks, Sherry. I appreciate that. We're at the 45-minute mark, so we're going to start to close things out and wrap up today's roundtable discussion. And I have to tell you, this has been just significant. It was tremendous, the feedback and direction that we received from our panelists. Absolutely invaluable. So, to all of the attendees, please, the journey to maximizing your MarTech in 2024 is ongoing. And the strategies that we discussed today are just the beginning. Mountainise is here to help. So please book a discovery call with Mountainise by going to mountainise.com and tapping on the purple call to action button at the top of the page, or email us at cs@mountainise.com, or call us at 415-226. I should share that. That would make sense, wouldn't it? So if you give me a second to share screen. so that we're all on the same page and you have all of the, there we go. That's makes sense, so you don't have to scribble it down. Call us at 415-226-6239. I'll keep this slide up. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing how we can unlock the full potential of your MarTech tools with Mountainise. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you.